Alright, hello and welcome back. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker. And in today's video, we're going to be going through the Exploit Vulnerabilities room, which is inside of the Vulnerability Research module of the Junior Pentester pathway of TryHackMe. And this is going to be a short run, I think. There's not very many tasks, but we'll see how long this one takes. If you are studying for the Junior Pentester pathway or the Pentest Plus or Ethical Hacker, anything like that, I do invite you to like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell and maybe even drop a comment if you have any questions or anything. All of these videos and everything that we do in this channel is along the lines of cybersecurity and ethical hacking and pen testing. And so everything that we do is going to be directly applicable to your certification exams as well as your day-to-day when you go into your job and do everything that you got to do for a security analyst or a pen tester. And yeah, I definitely would love it to have you as a part of our community, and I think you're going to get a lot of value from it. I do respond to all of the comments that do come in, so if you have any comments or any questions, please drop those, and we'd love to have you as a part of the community. So make sure that you subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you get notified the next time a video comes out from this path. That being said, let us jump into the introduction of the room. In this room, we're going to go over some means of identifying vulnerabilities and coupling the research skills that we learned from room 1. And we'll find some publicly available resources that we can add to our skill set and tools when performing vulnerability research and exploitation. And then we're going to apply everything inside of the challenge. So quick little intro, let's actually jump into the automated versus manual vulnerability research. Automated versus manual. So we have Nessus, which is the vulnerability scanner. It's a big one. It's a very popular one. It has both a free and commercial edition, so community and a commercial edition. And the commercial version costs thousands of pounds for a year's license, which means it costs even more in US dollars, and will likely be used in organizations providing pen testing services or audits. So it's a really, really big deal. If you know more about Nessus, we can check the room that's dedicated to it, or if you want to learn more about it, we can go into the room that's dedicated to it. And there's obviously advantages and disadvantages. So there's automated scans, easy to repeat, and the results can be shared with a team. People can often become reliant on automated scans and kind of forget how to do it manually. The scanners are quick and can test numerous applications, but they're extremely loud, and they produce a lot of traffic and logging. So it's not good if you're trying to bypass firewalls or stay under the radar. Open source exists, and open source are often basic and require expensive licenses to have useful features. The automated scanners cover a wide range of vulnerabilities. They don't find every vulnerability on an application. So that's another issue. So it's like it can do a lot, but it is still limited. Then there's frameworks like Metasploit that have vulnerability scanners for some modules. And it's something that we can learn about when we go into that specific pathway, or in this module, I guess. In this one, we're going to talk about it too. Manual scanning for vulnerabilities are often the weapon of choice by pen testers because you have a lot more control and you can actually get a lot more out of it. But it involves searching for the same vulnerabilities and use similar techniques as automated scanning. So ultimately, both are good, and we should probably do both, really. The vulnerability would be security misconfigurations, involve vulnerabilities that are due to developer oversight, for example, exposing server information in messages between the application and the attacker. There's broken access control, when an attacker is able to access parts of the application that are not supposed to be able to access. You have insecure deserialization, the process of data that is sent across an application, and we can pass malicious code to the application through that data, and kind of like, what do they call? I think they called poisoning the packet or something like that. And then you have injection, which is when we are able to input malicious data into the application due to the failure of not ensuring or sanitizing the input. So that is also something that is a big no-no, but it's also fun for the pen tester. So these are all things that you can kind of use as your attack vectors to see if something is vulnerable or weak and how you can exploit it. We can learn more about these in the OWASP framework, and this is something that we also did a series of rooms for, but OWASP is very, very big. I think it stands for the Open Web Application Security Project, something like that. And it's all about web applications. So the OWASP Top 10 is the security risks that are put out every single year. And as you can see, the rankings change year by year. And these are the various attempts that people make, or the various vulnerabilities or risks that are become more prominent and more used. So this list gets updated regularly, and it's something for you to always reference if you're in the work of securing web applications specifically. So that is OWASP Top 10. Now let's look at these answers. So you're working close to a deadline for your pen test and need to scan a web application quickly. Would you use an automated scanner? I'm going to say, yeah, why not? You are testing a web application and find that you're able to input and retrieve data in a database. What vulnerability is this? Let's see what the hint says. You would need to input harmful code. So that sounds like an injection, isn't it? We're injecting something. You managed to impersonate another user. What vulnerability is that? That sounds like a bad access control. So broken access control. And just like that, we got all of our answers for our automated versus manual vulnerability research. So let's look at finding manual exploits here. Rapid 7 is something like the exploit database or the NVD. It's a vulnerability research database, and the only difference is that it also acts as an exploit database, and we can filter by the vulnerability and find exploits as well. Additionally, it contains instructions for exploiting applications using the popular Metasploit tool. And this is a very, very awesome tool for pen testing and ethical hacking. There's a lot of stuff that comes with Metasploit. So we've done several rooms on it and several videos on it. So if you haven't watched those, definitely go check those out. And this is an example. So Rapid 7 is for WordPress plugin, project, and document, where we can see instructions on how to use it to abuse that vulnerability. And this is what it looks like when you have the MSF console loaded. Your command line changes to MSF, and then you can say use, and then this is the name of the exploit itself, and then it changes from MSF to MSF and then the exploit. And now you want to show the targets that you can attack, and it'll show you the targets. You can always do show options, and it'll show you right here. There we go. So it's going to show you all the options that you can set and all the options that are required for you to set, so that you can go ahead and run the exploit. And then you use the set command to set whatever the target that you want it to be. So set target, and then the target ID, and then set R hosts, set L port, things like that. And then once everything is set up and you're ready to run it, you can either do exploit or you can do run, and it'll actually execute the exploit and run against whatever the target is that you set up, so on and so forth. So very, very cool console. I love MSF console, and it's one of those big ones that is used a lot for pen testing and ethical hacking. So if you haven't used it, I highly recommend that you use it. GitHub is another source for you to find a bunch of vulnerabilities and exploits, and they provide source code in there. GitHub is a really big place for these kinds of things. You can find a lot. You can find dictionaries in there for passwords and username dictionaries, and just a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff is on GitHub. I actually have a couple of repositories as well, but they are under my real name, so they're not under my pseudonym, which is Hank Hackerson, obviously. In case you didn't know, that's actually not my real name. But yeah, under my personal repository, I've uploaded a lot of stuff, and I use that as a resume, kind of beefing up my resume to send it to various jobs and stuff like that. And I say, hey, this is my GitHub repository, and I have a bunch of things on here. So, to demonstrate expertise and things like that. So the site is used to host and share the source code of applications, and security researchers have taken to this because of the aforementioned reasons as well. Security researchers store and share proof of concept on GitHub, turning it into an exploit database in this concept. So it's very useful to find rare or fresh exploits, because anyone can create an account and upload. There's literally no verification process, and you can just go ahead and upload whatever you want. So you also got to make sure that because of the fact that there's no verification process, you don't download things or use things that have not been verified, or there's no support or something like that, just in case you get, you don't want to download something you shouldn't download. Basically, that's what I'm going to say. So this is kind of the general screen of it. So you have 9,682 repository results based on what the search was in this case, and then code and just a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's available here. You can narrow it down by language, depending on what language you're most comfortable with. So it's a big resource. GitHub is a big resource. And throughout TryHackMe, you'll also find a bunch of things that refer to the GitHub page of such and such resource. And then you can go download it from GitHub. We've used code from GitHub to run certain exploits. So GitHub is a big one. If you haven't heard of it, I highly recommend that you search into it. But I mean, you probably have. I can't imagine that you haven't heard of GitHub by this point. So they have a tagging and keyword system, and we can search for keywords like POC or vulnerability and a lot of other things. And at the time of this writing, there was 9,682 repositories with CVE in them. So common vulnerabilities and exploits, that's what that stands for. And you can also filter by the programming language, as we already mentioned. So GitHub, it's a really good one. Then we have SearchSploit, which is a command line tool that uses exploit database, but you can use it in the command line, and it kind of shows you everything that would have to do with whatever your search is. So you can do SurfShark, the word WordPress, and then it starts showing you everything right here. And then there's also an option that even gives you the direct link to it, that you can just click on whatever the link is, and it'll take you to that that vulnerability / exploit inside of the exploit DB, inside of your web browser, and then from there you can kind of download whatever you need to download or read whatever you got to read. But SurfSploit is just another one of those tools. It's available on Kali Linux. I think it comes pre-installed when you download or install Kali Linux. It's available on the TryHackMe attack box, and it's an offline copy of the exploit database containing copies of exploits on your system. It needs to be updated, so I'll tell you that. Since it is an offline copy, it doesn't mean that it's always updated. So it's always good to, again, use just a combination of these different tools instead of just relying on one. But if you like the command line, which I very much love the command line because it just streamlines a lot of processes. If you like the command line, then this is another one of those tools that's just super fun to use and very, very useful. So definitely make use of it. If you have Kali Linux, or if you use the TryHackMe attack box, kind of get used to running these things and searching for it. So question here is, what website would you use as a security researcher if you wanted to upload a proof of concept? And that is GitHub, our beloved GitHub. You're performing a penetration test at a site with no internet connection. Right there, that's all I need to know, that it's SurfSploit. Manual exploitation. This is an example that we're going to end up using, and again, we're searching for, I think, for Apache Timecat. So one of the most effective vulnerabilities that we can exploit is the ability to execute commands on the target, remote execution, remote shell, anything like that. So being able to execute commands on a target that's running vulnerable application allows us to read files or execute commands that we previously wouldn't be able to perform using the application or service alone. Additionally, we can abuse this to gain what is known as a foothold or persistence. It's an access to the vulnerable machine's console where we can then begin to exploit other applications. So we're going to use an exploit to perform remote code execution on the application from task 2, which is the Apache Tomcat. Before we start, it's important to note that the exploits rarely come out of the box and are ready to be used. We often have to configure the exploit with something in order to be able to make it happen. And the level of configuration varies depending on what you're actually using. So it's up to us to try to figure out which one is most appropriate for us based on what we know how to do and what we have available as resources, so on and so forth. So for example, in the snippet below, we can see a few options to reflect the IP address of the machine. So nano exploit.py, and then my machine, and then port 1337, right? So exploit.py is a Python script My machine is the variable that we would put our IP address into, and then the port number is the port that we would want to probably run against, and then same thing. So this is modifying it before and then modifying it after. This is what it will look like. So the IP address has changed, but the port stays the same. And now, once it's been configured, we can try to see what else we can do. So this is the help command for the specific Python file. And so to use this exploit, we need to provide the following arguments, which is U for the URL of the application and C for the command that you want to execute. So in this case, it would end up looking like this. Exploit, U would be the URL that we want to do. C is who am I? So that's the command that you would want to execute, and it'll tell you who you are right there on the screen. So if you do exploit and then the URL and then cat flag.txt, it'll show you the exploit flag or whatever the flag is that's in there. So what type of vulnerability was used in this task? And the vulnerability that was used in this task is remote code execution is what we did. Yeah, so remote code execution, and there we go. So just like that, we were able to kind of see an example here, and now we're going to actually run an example. We're going to practice what that actually is. So let me start this machine and let's go into our practical example here. All right, with our attack box up and with our virtual machine up, or it says it's not up. Is it up? It should be up. I don't know why it's giving me, yeah, there you go, it is up. Very good. So now what we're going to do is, it says that we got to wait a minimum of 5 minutes for it to be fully set up. After 5 minutes, we're going to visit the web server by navigating to that address and then see what we can find. So let's see if it can run, because I think I waited a couple of minutes here, but I definitely don't think I waited 5 minutes. So let's see that, and if it's not up, I guess we'll wait 5 minutes. So 10, 10, 2, 3, 1, 108. Okay, it is up. Nice. And that did not take 5 minutes. So very good. So find out the version of the application that's running. What are the name and version number of the application? So we're here. Let's kind of see what we can find here. We have this online bookstore version 1.0. And I think that's literally what it actually is. So online bookstore v 1.0. There you go. So that's that. And now use the resources and skills from this module to find an exploit that will allow you to gain remote access to the vulnerable machine. So let's see if we can just do a SearchSploit search real quick and see what we can get. So SearchSploit, actually I'm going to do a man first, like just do a manual for SearchSploit and see what I can find. No manual entry for SearchSploit. It says cman7 undocumented for help. That's fine. So we're just going to do SearchSploit, and then we will do, what is it? Online bookstore, and see what we can find here. And there we go. So we got a few things here. So go to code online bookstore. We have online bookstore 1.0, book ISBN, SQL injection, file upload, unauthenticated remote. Ooh, I think this is the one that we want. Unauthenticated remote access probably is what it is. Online events and booking, etc. So that is, I think, the one that I want. So let's see what I can do here. Use this exploit against the vulnerable machine. What is the value of the flag located in a web directory? So I think it is specifically that that one that is right here. So we're going to do a cat of php web apps and then 47887.py, because that is the file. How is that non-existent? Okay, so let's try to find it. All right, and there it is. So just a basic find command. So we've looked inside our root recursively for everything that has a name of 48 or 47887.py. And here's what we found. So I'm just going to stop this for now. I think that's good enough for me. And I'm going to copy this and come on. We'll just copy it here and then we will see what we can find. So cat O, because I know that the first couple didn't pick up, and there it is. So categorize that for me, or cat that for me. And so this is the full thing. And so these are the comments at the top. Exploit yada yada yada, version yada yada yada, software, etc., and remote code authentication. And so what do I need here as far as the information of this execution? So remote code authentication, the software link is here, and this is the Project World vendor homepage for Tiberius, whatever. Tiberius, there you go, that's probably better. So let's see what we can find here as far as what we need to do to make this work for us. All right, based on what I have read here, it seems like we should be supplying some kind of an argument to it. I will run this just by itself just to see what I need to do for this in this particular case. Oh man, what's happening here? We're gonna just clear this up. Oof, let's clear that. Okay, very good. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to use that same thing and we're just going to run a Python 3 command just to actually run it and see what we can find from here. So yeah, the usage says that you need to add a URL to it. So from here, I'm just gonna do this one more time. Okay, so that's what it is. So I thought I actually had to add URL before doing the URL, but it's literally running the Python file and right after it putting the URL. And so now it's attempting to upload the web shell, so on and so forth. Do we want to launch a shell? Yes, we want to launch a shell. And there we go. Remote code execution is done. So if I do ls, this is where I am. And oh, look, there's a flag right there. You could see the flag right there. So now we could just look at that flag. Very, very simple. There you go, bookkeeping. And that's it. So it was actually not hard to do this. It was pretty easy to do this. And all we needed to do was just make sure that we ran the code correctly. And that's the part that I needed a little bit of help with. And I just did some basic Googling and found out that instead of running, so this is, I'll show you the previous version that I was running. So exit, can I exit? How do I get out of here? There we go, exit. So that is the correct version. That is basically, you know, Python 3, and then the full path of where the actual Python file is, and then the URL. That's the correct version. This is the version that I was running before, where I put URL right before it, which didn't make sense. And then there was another one that I did URL just by itself. That didn't make sense. And there was another one where I did URL and then the URL, and that didn't work either, because I just kept thinking that I'm supposed to provide some kind of a URL variable manually, but you literally, all you need to do is just put the actual URL. You just run it and then you just put whatever you're trying to upload the shell into. And very, very easy, very, very straightforward right after that. So just like that, we just finished the manual exploitation practice of the TryHackMe room for exploit vulnerabilities. And we are now done with this one, and we can move on to the next one, which is vulnerability capstone challenge. So there is that. If you got any value from this room, or if you're studying for junior pen tester, pen test plus, ethical hacker, any of those certifications, I do invite you to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. And if you have any questions or comments, drop it in the comments section. I get back to all of the comments and all the questions in a timely manner. Sometimes it might take me a day, but I usually get it done pretty quickly. And then from there, I'll do the very best that I can to answer any of the questions that you got. And if you're studying for any of those pathways, this will be directly helpful to you in your certification exams, as well as your day-to-day tasks of just getting into the job that you got to do. So your pen tester or your ethical hacker job, so on and so forth. That is it. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker. If no one else loves you, Hank loves you. Love, peace, and chicken grease. I will see you in the next video. Later.